We all have times where we feel hopeless. We feel like things aren't going our way. It's a natural thing that we go through. Now, how do you get past that? What do you do? We're going to find out today. I'm Rickey Jasper, and this is the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. After getting laid off 2 times in 6 months, I realized I had to be chasing a greater vision in my life. I had to be walking into my calling. I spent time building up a successful fitness apparel business, and then now stepping back in front of camera to talk, to speak more, to hopefully inspire you to chase a greater vision in your life. And my goal with this podcast is for us to do it together. So let's make it happen. Hi, I'm Rickey Jasper, and welcome back to the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. This is a fun one to talk about today. Not a fun topic, but definitely fun things to talk through. What do you do when you feel hopeless in areas? What do you do when you feel unhappy or when things aren't really going your way? That is such a natural part of what we go through, right? Not everything is in our control. We can't control what other people do. We can't control how they react. We can't control the circumstances of when things happen. And there are big things that lead to hopelessness, and there are small things that lead to a level of just dissatisfaction. And sometimes those things are just hard to process. In my life, I keep talking about it in other podcasts. I've gone through so much job loss, right? I've gone through financial rock bottom with running businesses and things like that. And I know people watching have gone through way worse with family loss and things of that nature. And, there is a level of depth and there's a level of hopeness that I can't speak to because I haven't gone through it. That's the one thing that I'll be very transparent and vulnerable about on this podcast. I'm not going to sit and say I'm an expert in everything because I'm not. I am going to talk about my experiences. I'm going to be open and vulnerable about that and hopefully help you with where I'm at. So as I grow, this will grow. The depthness will grow. But this is an important thing because I genuinely think no matter what your quote unquote level of hopelessness is, there are some times where it's like we just can't feel like we're getting it together. So we're going to talk about that today. Our first segment is our head and heart hit segment. What hit me in the head made me think logically. What hit me in the heart made me feel a certain way. And this must be a record because we're going back to back. I know the author of this. This is coming again from one of my favorite people that I follow on Instagram, Stephen Bartlett. Very simple. All pendulums swing back. Be patient. From a logic standpoint, yeah, a pendulum, it swings back. You're looking at a pendulum, you're like, okay, cool. It swings one way, it's got to swing back. From a feeling standpoint, I'm like, wow, like that is so true because if I look at my life, I've lost 4 jobs in my career. That means I've had more than 4 jobs. So when I lost a job, the pendulum swung back. I gained one. When I lost a relationship, pendulum swung back. I gained one. When I went rock bottom financially, the pendulum swung back. I hit a very different stride. These things that I get caught up with personally where I'm like, man, I can get so down on myself. I'm like, wait, but you typically swing back. When I sprain my ankle, or have an injury, you heal up, you come right back. And so that's why when you start to feel hopelessness in certain areas, you got to realize at some point in time, it's going to swing back. We're going to talk about what to do when you feel hopeless. I'm super excited about this one because I've really put a lot of thought into it. I've really thought about things in my life where I've gotten myself out of a hole mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. And it's been really cool to kind of see now from a bird's eye view being away from some of that. I'm sure down the road I'll have some more of this, but from where I'm at now in life. So our tips and tricks, these are things that are strategic and so simple to grasp and so simple to do on a daily basis that you can write down, that you can use to combat certain things that we talk about and attack here. And today we have 4 things to do when you feel hopeless, when you feel stagnant, when you feel unhappy. The first thing is understand life is cyclical. I love that tip because everything in life is cyclical. The day is cyclical. The sun rises, the sun sets. When you plant a seed and you look at the seasons, we go through our season of winter where everything is dead. And then, the roots are growing deep. And then spring, wow, we now see, the plants and the trees start to really grow. And then summer, we're able to really enjoy the fruits of our labor. We're able to really enjoy it. And then fall, old dead things are starting to fall off so we can reseed the ground for what is going to happen in that dormant season of winter. It's a cycle. Our life and how we operate through things are a cycle, and not all cycles are positive. You can look at your life in certain areas. I'll look at my life in past relationships. My relationships were cyclical. It would go something like this. I meet a person. I'm in it for the wrong reasons, more so like, oh, this person's attractive. Let me just get in it for a sexual reason, blah, blah, blah. I would say anything to stay in it when the person's like, I potentially want more. Then it would be some sort of argument. I would be the toxic one and be like, okay, cool, I'm out, argue, blah, blah, blah. And then once it's cooled off for a period, there would be that missing the person period, and then I would reach back out, and now we're back in that cycle. And that would just go on until it played itself out. So understanding that your life is cyclical, whether it's positive or negative, that is a good thing, because you know that if you are in a negative, hopeless cycle, you can break out of it and start to create new and better cycles. That is something that I've seen so apparent in my life. A lot of cycles and a lot of things that I would say probably weren't my best trait. I just spoke about the relationship aspect. Financially, I feel like I've always been financially conscious, but when running a business, I didn't make the best financial decisions. I was like, okay, we're just kind of trying new things, and there is a level of investment, but when you step away from that and you create new cycles and new habits, you start to see the benefits of having new cycles. And even if you're in a new cycle, and even if it's going really well, understand there is going to be a level of your winter, your spring, your summer, your fall. That is going to happen. And if you go through that with an expectation, then when those cycles hit, just identify the season that you're in and know the next season is inevitably coming. I said this about the job loss. Like, I've lost jobs. So if that's my winter, then spring has to come next if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do to get to that spring. So that's the first tip. The second tip is remember the adversity you've already gone through. We get into things and we forget, and I love this, whether you love David Goggins or hate David Goggins, it makes no difference. But he says this one thing is like, we forget how hard we are when tough times hit. And it's so true. My brother and I, we just did a high rocks competition, and we were in men's doubles division, and we cut about 4 minutes off of our time from the last time, and we increased our placing. We placed 17th out of 93 men's doubles competitors. We pushed, and we improved, and we pushed. After the first kilometer run, and then we had a ski erg, right? When we hit that second run, mind you, it's the best shape of my life that I've been in. The best shape of my life. We pushed so hard that first run, that second run, the first probably half of the 1 kilometer run, I was like, oh, I can quit now because I'm spent. Like, I hadn't hit my flow yet or anything. I was like, I'm spent. Like, I'm done. Like, how am I supposed to get through another hour of this thing, or we're trying to beat an hour? How am I supposed to get to there? On that second half of the kilometer, I started to think about, wait a second, in my training, I had hit this breaking point. In my nutrition, in areas that I wanted to give up and just quit or whatever, I had already hit my breaking point. I'd already hit my breaking points in this. And also from a feeling standpoint, like, my legs are feeling good, everything. I was like, mentally, I just was knocked out of it for about 2 minutes, right? But when I remembered how hard I trained and that I wasn't even close to hitting the level that I've been at in my training all alone at 5:30 in the morning, I was like, oh, I locked back in. So remember the adversity that you've already gone through. Remember the tough times that you've been through. Remember the loss that you've had. Remember the frustration that you've gone through. And if once you lock into that, you'll start to realize that you've gotten stronger every single time, and that this hopelessness, this feeling, it's going to pass because you're a stronger person for it. I've said this before on other episodes. Sometimes the weight doesn't get lighter. You just get stronger. If I'm benching 135 pounds, if that's hard for me at the beginning, and I do that for 3 months' time, and then the third month, the weight is the same. The weight feels lighter because I'm now stronger. you've overcome so much adversity that next thing that's hitting, or whatever you're in that's hitting now, you got to realize and remember how strong you actually are. The third thing is, and I love this when I smile because, man, like, we can go on for days about this. Improve how you wait. When you're going through seasons, I smile because, oh man, I used to complain all the time. I still probably do. Like, you ask Carly, I still probably do. But I used to complain all the time in a waiting period. And I would just be so frustrated. It's like, I deserve to have this at this time. I deserve to be this at this time, blah, 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 blah. And I would just complain. And I wasn't a good person to be around. And I wasn't doing the right things. And I didn't sharpen any skill sets that I've had. I would just let bitterness creep in. I'd be complaining. And I kind of sit back, and it's like all that time while I'm waiting in that winter season, I'm not doing anything to move the dial forward in any area of life. Every time I've lost a job, I've taken now, the past two loss, I've taken inventory of what I'm good at, what I'm not so good at. What I'm not so good at, those are skills that I sharpen and that I focus on, and especially if there's skills that like I know I'm going to utilize. And instead of just sitting and complaining or anything like that, I'm like, let me just get better and improve while I wait. Complaining does nothing. It just sours my mood. It sours the people's mood around me. Nobody wants to be around me, and it doesn't move the dial forward. So when you are waiting in that waiting period, improve while you're waiting. Improve yourself. Get up on better habits. If you feel hopeless, if you feel down, if you don't really have things going on, find areas that you can start focusing on improving, because it's like planting seeds. If you have a garden, and if your life's a garden, and you take the seeds, and while you're waiting, you're like, well, there's nothing sprouting right now. Well, I might as well plant more seeds. Instead of just walking through and stomping on all the other seeds that you have and throwing rocks in the ground and all this other type of stuff, just plant more seeds. Utilize your time doing that, because at some point in time, and it goes back to my first point, is it's cyclical. At some point in time, those seeds that you're planting while you wait will hit springtime. They'll start to sprout. And wouldn't it be so cool during spring to turn and look and say, wow, there's 40, 50 trees and flowers sprouting. Then dang, there's one and it's kind of bent and it's not, I don't think it's going to survive because I spent all this time crushing every other seed. And this was the one who kind of barely sprouted. So improve how you wait. That is going to also change you from a mental standpoint of when adversity happens, when you feel hopeless, when things that happen that you don't anticipate or that you don't like happening, it's going to start to be a habit. You're going to say, okay, cool, I'm in a winter season now. Things around me are looking dead, but I can plant some things here. The fourth thing is stay physically active. This is our fourth and final point, and I love this point because probably 5-6 years ago, I went through an interesting breakup. What hurt the most was I was so identified with the relationship, although short, because I was very insecure in areas of my life. Financially, I was insecure. Career-wise, I had just started 413, and I wasn't working a full-time job. I just started 413 Apparel. I wasn't working a full-time job. A lot of things from an ego standpoint, my ego was taking a hit, right? And I just kind of stopped being physically active from time to time, just wasn't really up on the go. And I have a buddy of mine, his name's Rich, and we talked all the time. And he's an ex-Marine, like really good dude, and he's been through it in areas of his life. And I remember calling him and being like, man, I just don't feel like getting out of bed. And I was living in San Diego at the time. I was like, man, I want to just like move back to Virginia. Because at the time, my parents lived in Virginia. I'm from Virginia originally. I was like, I just want to move back home or back near home. Like, I don't want to do this. And Rich said something that was so interesting. He was like, if every day you wake up and you place yourself in a dark hole consciously, like you actively don't go to the gym. You do actions that are not in a direction that are helping you get out of this. He goes, over time, you're just digging a hole deeper and deeper and deeper. He's like, and at some point in time, you're going to look around and you're going to be ready to get out of the hole. But you're going to realize that, oh man, this hole is so big and I have to climb out of this and I don't know if I can do it. He was like, so what you have to do is you have to make sure that not digging yourself a hole is a habit. And staying active is one of the main things that you can do. The reason why I wake up at 5 in the morning and I start my day with a level of activity is not the aesthetic benefit. It's I want to get up and get my body moving, because if I can get my body moving, my mind starts moving. I have endurance for the day. On days where I'm not up and not active in the morning, I'm kind of sluggish throughout the day. All of the negative thoughts about things, or all the questioning thoughts, or all the thoughts that are not the most fun start to creep back in, because I don't feel like I've given myself the adequate tools and physicality to walk through it, and I haven't set the tone for my day. So if you're feeling a level of hopelessness, if you're feeling down, get active. And it doesn't mean you have to go spend hours in the gym. You could just be getting outside, going for a walk. It's just changing your physical state and doing something different that puts you in a different position. There's one thing, and this is kind of when it comes to getting active, but not in a workout standpoint, that I've learned from my relationship. So Carly and I went through a very tough period about a year ago, right? For reasons, mostly it was just my immaturity, no infidelity, anything like that. It was just like, okay, I was having a lot of anxiety around things, and I was like, I needed to figure out how to be a better man singularly and man collectively in the relationship with certain things. So it was one of the reasons why we went to couples counseling. It was great. It gave me so many tools. And the one thing that I have learned is, and I learned a lot of things, but the one thing that's really stuck is acting in a way that is loving and taking action instead of just stewing about whatever's going on in my head. And that's such an interesting thing, because now my automatic response is, instead of just self-sabotaging and whatever, let me just make a loving action. So if I'm feeling a certain way or whatever, it's like, I'm going to drive out to the store and I'll get flowers. Carly's love language is physical touch and words of affirmation. I'll give her a big hug. I'll say something that is nice, even if I don't feel like it, because it's the action that changes the state, that moves things in a right direction. And for me, it changes me on the inside, and it becomes habitual. So when I don't feel a certain way, if I feel hopeless or whatever, I change my actions. I get active in a certain way. And again, this goes beyond the bounds of just working out. It's taking action in a direction that you want, so it changes your state. And it's a consistent thing, because it doesn't mean that the day 2 you're going to wake up and not feel hopeless. You might still, but those actions are still there to take, so you can move yourself in a right direction, so that pendulum can swing back the other way. To wrap it all up and just to recap the tips and tricks: number 1, understand that life is cyclical. It's going to go through it. Your spring is on the way if you're in winter. Number 2, remember the adversity that you've gone through. You are stronger than you think, and I can guarantee you there's something that's happened in the past that's probably been harder than what's what's going on right now. And if it hasn't, then that's okay as well, because down the road, something's going to hit, and what you're going through now is the training ground for what's next. Number 3, improve how you wait. Wait with a level of faith that something else is coming, and that you have to use this time, your winter, to plant seeds. That's in any silo of life. Plant those seeds, because winter will not stay forever. And number 4, stay physically active and or do something physically, moving with your body, up and moving in a right direction that changes your state, that is so different from what you feel in your body, in your mind, in your spirit. Move and do something different. And our last segment is our word of the day. Today, it's simple. It's pendulum. You're going to swing back wherever you are. Think in your head, hey, it's a pendulum. It's pendulum time. Whatever you want to say, it's going to swing back at some point in time. Life is cyclical. No matter where you're at, it's going to move back in a direction that is in your benefit. And here's a caveat. And at some point in time, it's going to swing back to a direction that's not in your benefit. I was actually listening to a sermon today by T.D. Jakes, and he was like, and I'm going to butcher this, so let's just keep it a buck. And he was saying that sometimes God hurts you in certain areas, but it's intentional, but it's to keep you safe. And he made the metaphor that if you're a parent and a car is coming, you push your kid out of the way from the car. Now the kid skins his knee. The kid's hurt. You intentionally push the kid's hurt, but it kept them away from getting hit by a car, right? So if you are intentionally getting pushed, sometimes that might feel like hopelessness. But what it is doing, it's either keeping you safe or it's making you stronger in an area that you need to be stronger. That season that Carly and I went through last time, that has made us so much stronger. Now, do we still have our challenges? Absolutely. Am I still growing? Absolutely. Is she still growing? Absolutely. Are we still growing together? Absolutely. But that was designed so that we could be stronger. If that doesn't hit, we aren't where we are today. If some things in the future don't hit us, we aren't going to be where we're supposed to be 10, 20 years from now. So know that the pendulum will swing back, but when it swings back, it's not always to hurt you. Sometimes it's to help you, sometimes to keep you safe, sometimes to make you stronger. So that pendulum is going to swing either way to your benefit. I hope that this message helps. We're going to continue to chase a greater vision in our lives. We're going to continue to be better people. If this podcast helped you or you think it could help somebody else, send it out. I hope you enjoyed this message, and I will see you next time. Thank you all so much for watching the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. If you like this podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, send it to friends, use a carrier pigeon, do whatever you have to do. We hope that this inspires you to chase your greater vision in your life and for us to continually and consistently do it together.